It's not the ECB. It's how much the German politicians will accept higher increase in the wages, how much politically can the South have to go through the deflation and accept it, how much the North politicians will be willing to give in transfers to the South, and how much again the politics in the North will be willing to accept the immigration from the South, because there is a pressure for the immigration. If you follow the things in Europe, you have seen that as the crisis started, there was this huge discussion on the reintroduction of the borders and border checks controls in France first, during Sarkozy. All right, so it's not clear that there is a political willingness to allow the movement of labor to kind of solve much of this crisis. And the fifth, and probably the most healthy one, is for these countries to really move on these scales, league tables in terms of the structural reforms, to make their economies able to accept the FDIs from now, because that's the, I would say, economically most healthy way of resolving the crisis, but will not happen overnight. So crisis has developed over the long time, divergence, and it will take time for it to converge. People often make this parallel to the biblical 7 years of excesses and then 7 years of famine. We're now in the 4th year. So if that's true, we need 3 more years, yeah, to see that. Yeah. And I'm not sure whether we are still through the half-life of the. And of course, the trillion-euro question is, can they do it? And that we will see. And this is where I'm going to end.
Anybody wants to ask a question?
Yeah.
First, maybe a little comment on the last point that you made. I don't know if you saw this survey that came out about 2 months ago. They asked in the South and in the North, they asked in the Euro area, if you have to have 20% inflation or 20% unemployment. You cannot say, I don't want it. What do you prefer? In the South, obviously, the preference was 20% inflation, but 90% margin. And in the North, 90% was 20% unemployment. Now, how do you solve this problem? This is a preference problem. It's a single monetary policy. I don't know how you solve this problem. And then I have a question. When you talk about convergence, usually they measure the unit labor cost. It's a way of looking at convergence. But the problem is that this type of convergence is not very sustainable when you have a huge difference in levels of employment. I mean, even if the unit labor cost in Greece and Spain will convert to Germany, if you have 25-27% unemployment in Spain and Germany and 50% youth unemployment, this is not very sustainable. So I don't think that this convergence is something that is desirable or even sustainable.
Yeah. Well, on the first, I've seen that. Yeah, we actually discussed that, and it's a clear European problem, because the North obviously has a very different economic ethics than the South, and it's very difficult for the common monetary policy to operate in such an environment. But okay, this is just a survey. I would say that again, it's now at the moment up to the politicians faced with the reality to accept. And in Greece, it's clear they cannot print their own money, so they have to accept the wage cuts. And there is no other way for them to go. If they would have the possibility of printing their own money, then the popular vote would go for printing press. But okay, they cannot do it, and the ECB will not do it for them. They will not see the 20% inflation rate. So what the ECB can do there, as I said to Andy, it can tolerate. It will not say. Don't expect the ECB to say we're going to change our inflation target. But they will probably be much more lenient, tolerating the higher inflation rate during the process of the convergence. But the level at which they will tolerate it will not be enough to solve the problem. It will only solve a part of the problem. Now, for the unit labor cost, I fully agree. The problem is if in Spain you have 25% unemployment rate, I mean, even if your unit labor costs converge, you have not solved your problem. But also on the unit labor costs, I would add that you have a good way of solving the unit labor cost problem or bad way, or better way of solving it than the other one, and this is through the increase in the productivity rather than in a cut in the wages. Because unit labor costs, people mostly perceive as a cut in the wages. So you'll have a convergence in the unit labor costs. Actually, that's not a very healthy way of doing it, and it may get you into even more trouble before it gets better. The easiest way, the best way would be to increase the productivity. How do you increase the productivity? Again, there is no easy answer. Again, you have to go and say, what are my problems in the economy? What are my structural problems? How do I improve the economy? How do I use all this economic sovereignty that I have, on which the ECB or the Europe has nothing to say? What do I do with my education system, healthcare system, social security, judicial system? Do I have a corruption? All these really tough things, and I mean, unfortunately, there are no easy policies. I don't think that macroeconomic policies in the end can solve this issue. You really have to go and do the nitty-gritty hard work and structural policies. So my only, I mean, this is almost like, it was like my conclusion, but it's more my hope than the conclusion. I'm not sure that I'm right on that, is that once you impose the fiscal discipline, once you hit the wall, the sheer fact that you cannot go the old way will turn you to another path, and you will start to do these structural policies. The problem is that it will take, again, it will take a lot of time.
Sorry, a technical question. You mentioned the 60% target for the debt to GDP rate.
Right.
And last week in another conference, Olivier Blanchard, the IMF, pointed out to the same number. And I'm curious, how did you come to that number as a target? Because there is nothing in the theory that says 60, so it's a number for all the countries in the area.
Yeah, the answer to your question is very simple, because that's said in the Maastricht Treaty. And but then you can ask, how did they come up in the Maastricht Treaty to that number? And the answer is, there was no economics or mathematics behind that. They looked at the average at that time, public debt in the European Union, and they put down the number. Nothing smarter than that. Now, how did they come with the inflation criterion of 1.5 percentage points above the 3 countries with the lowest inflation rate in the European Union? Well, for Croatia, that might mean that we will have to have a lower inflation rate than the Eurozone to get into the Eurozone, because in a single year you can have 3 countries with a 0 inflation rate, and the ECB target is 2%. So it doesn't make sense, but it's there. It's in the treaty, and nobody will reopen the treaty. You have to hit 60% and inflation target, as such.